Now then, those of you that watch the channel regularly will probably not have failed to notice that I'm sitting in front of a slightly different background today. There's no denying it, I went out and bought some paint and timber and I finally got myself organised enough to build a proper workspace. And as luck would have it, in the same week I was building this lot, a very kind man called John Mitchell, who runs a production company called Mondo Media in Australia, emailed me with some professional tips on which way round to hold the camera and how to set up the aperture and adjust something that's apparently called white balance. Who knew? Well, John did. Now, what we're going to talk about this week. Hello and welcome to Just Have a Think. Well, it's been a busy week of activity on both sides of the Atlantic, but before I dive into that, there's just a couple of addendums I need to make to last week's programme that were highlighted by a few of you in the comments section. The first of which is that I was wrong to say that there are Teslas out there with 100,000 miles on the clock and still going strong with 70% battery capacity. No, according to this report by Clean Technica, Tesla batteries have 90% capacity after 160,000 miles and may actually last more than 500,000 miles. In fact, this Finnish taxi driver has just gone through the 400,000 kilometre or 250,000 mile mark with a battery capacity of 93%. Second emission was to do with home charging for people who don't have driveways or garages. Several of you quite rightly pointed out that curbside chargers are rapidly being implemented in many urban centres, and in London there are even initiatives to add charging points at the bottom of lampposts. So it looks like with a little bit of lateral thinking, solutions are being found even to the challenge of curbside charging, which is extremely encouraging. So back to this week then. Across the pond in the city of New York, which I believe was the original stomping ground of a property developer called Donald J. Trump, the City Council this week passed a resolution declaring a climate emergency. The resolution followed a street protest in the Big Apple back in April by the fast-growing global phenomenon known as Extinction Rebellion, a climate activist group from the UK who occupied our capital city for 2 weeks of peaceful protest and civil disobedience back in April of this year. New York's declaration makes it the largest urban centre in the world to have taken this stance, following the original declaration in Derrybin in Australia back in 2016 and more recently in London and Sydney, as well as in something like 722 other cities in 15 countries around the world. On Tuesday, Senator Bernie Sanders, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Representative Earl Blumenauer underscored their Green New Deal initiative by pushing for Congress to officially recognise the climate emergency on a national level. And as if nature wanted to underline the point, Washington DC was hit by flash floods that brought 2 to 3 feet of water to Pennsylvania Avenue, reaching all the way into the basement of the White House. Then on Wednesday, Los Angeles formalised its own climate emergency declaration, calling climate change one of the most important issues facing the city and establishing what it calls a climate emergency mobilisation department. And of course, right now, as I'm making this video on Saturday the 13th of July, our friends down in Louisiana, and in particular in New Orleans, are once again getting absolutely battered, this time by Tropical Storm Barry, bringing huge storm surges and 20 inches of rain, which are threatening to overwhelm the city's flood defences in a fairly grim reminder of Katrina back in 2005. According to the National Geographic, southern Louisiana has been coping with nearly continuous flooding since February, following record rains in the Midwest, and in fact across the country the last 12 months has been the wettest in history. The Mississippi, they say, is currently 16 feet above sea level when it would normally be 5 to 10 feet. On Thursday, the White House issued a national disaster declaration which allows federal agencies to take part in the relief effort. There's a real dichotomy going on in the United States at the moment, which I'm sure those of you that live there don't particularly want to hear about from a pasty-faced limey like me. So what I thought I'd do is tell you all about it anyway. On the one hand, you've got the nut jobs from the big oil who are pulling the strings in the Republican Party, most notably exemplified by Donald Trump's decision to pull out of the 2015 Paris Agreement, whilst incidentally also applying for planning permission to build a seawall around his golf club in Southwest Ireland to protect it from the effects of sea level rises as a result of climate change. On the other hand, you've got the United States Climate Alliance, which is a bipartisan coalition of states and territories that are committed to meeting the original United States pledges under the Paris 2015 agreement of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 28% over 2005 levels by 2025 and meeting or exceeding the targets of the Federal Clean Power Plan. The group includes 24 states in the Union representing 132 million people with a gross domestic product of $11.7 trillion, which puts it just behind the second biggest economy in the world, China. The climate and clean energy policies in the Alliance states have attracted billions of dollars of new investment and created 1.7 million clean energy jobs since its inception in 2017, which is way more than half of the US total. They set out their priority actions in their fact sheet, which you can download from this address. Among their many positive initiatives, Alliance states are coordinating on the development and implementation of technical tools to support community resilience, including mapping to identify the risk posed by combined sea level rise, storm surge and extreme precipitation. Their Clean Energy Finance Initiative will invest trillions in clean energy, critical infrastructure and climate change mitigation over the coming couple of decades. And they're leading the way in rethinking traditional electric utility regulation to accommodate rapidly changing technology, meet renewable energy and emission reduction goals, and build clean, resilient and affordable electricity markets for the future. Coordinated policy action among Alliance states is driving the development and design of new building, engineering and construction models that could be replicated across the country and can transform national markets for energy consuming equipment and appliances. These Alliance states represent nearly a third of total light-duty vehicle sales and nearly 2/3 of electric vehicle sales in the United States, and they're cooperating on comprehensive approaches to clean up America's transportation system and protect the health of citizens from vehicle pollution. And crucially, they're also identifying best practices for land conservation, management and restoration to develop a carbon storage policy framework and chart a path forward for forests, farmland, ranch land, grasslands, wetlands and urban land to mitigate the harmful effects of climate change. These are very encouraging initiatives, but of course they need to be duplicated in the other 26 states of the Union. So if you're resident in one of those states, you might want to get onto your elected representative to find out why it is that your state's not getting in on the action. Over here in the United Kingdom, our government prides itself on leading the way in the global effort to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. But there are still some hugely backward policy decisions being made that undermine some of the good work that's being done. In a future video, we'll be having a close look at the latest scathing report from the UK's own Committee on Climate Change, which has got some very tough words for our lawmakers. In the meantime, from Monday the 15th of July, Extinction Rebellion will once again be taken to the streets of the United Kingdom in what they're calling their Summer Uprising. Their message to the UK government, and in fact governments right around the world, is very simple: act now. According to their website, Britain's own food security is compromised, marginalised communities within the UK are already paying the consequences, and widespread water shortages, famine, extreme weather and conflicts caused by dwindling resources are becoming commonplace in the global south. The UK Parliament has announced a climate emergency, but the government is not taking the necessary decisive actions required by the crisis. Their 2050 net zero target is an alarmingly insufficient response for halting climate breakdown and biodiversity loss. And politicians are ignoring the science as they encourage airport expansions, the high-speed rail link from south to north that we call HS2, fracking and oil drilling and exploration, while putting billions into new roads and subsidising investment into fossil fuels. Meanwhile, they block onshore wind installations and tax sustainable alternatives. So if you're in London, Leeds, Cardiff or Bristol from Monday the 15th of July, go and have a look at Extinction Rebellion's website or have a look at their Facebook pages for your city to see how you can get involved. That's it for this week. We're going to be taking a 2-week break now due to other work commitments, so the next video is going to be coming your way on Sunday the 4th of August. Do please give us a like and a share if you found the programme useful and informative, and if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel and remember to hit the little bell icon so you get notified of when all the new programmes come out each week. It's of course completely free to subscribe, you just need to click on that icon there. As always, thanks very much for watching, have a great couple of weeks and remember to just have a think. See you soon.